We have a guest, Nick Huber with Sweaty Startup. Nick, how you doing?
I bought somewhere.com for $52 million, 325 employees, about $30 million of revenue across my portfolio.
Now, if you had like $10,000 today, what businesses would you be looking into?
I got excited about stuff that other people found boring. All these companies, I have no idea how any of them are going to make any money.
How do I know when to spread a little bit of my energy and when to focus my energy?
If I ranked the top 10 wealthiest people I know, 7 of them focused on one thing. That this is the highest percent chance to get wealthy.
How do you pick whether to buy a business or whether to start the business?
95% of people are not even skilled and competent enough to start a company, let alone buy one. A secret that nobody wants to tell you about entrepreneurship is that.
All right, welcome back to the Niche Pursuits podcast. My name is Jared Bauman. Today, we have a guest, Nick Huber with Sweaty Startup. Nick, how you doing?
Jared, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Welcome on board. I mean, I feel like we got some great timing here. You have a book coming out, probably out, I think, by the time this will go live, but we'll adjust.
Today, actually, while we're recording it, April 29th is launch day. So this morning, we're live right now.
Oh my gosh. I can't believe you must have way bigger things to be doing than talking to us here.
No, man, no.
We gotcha.
It's, here it is. It's my goal when I wrote this thing was to advance somebody's career 25%, the average reader. So if I would have had this book in my hands, it's called The Sweaty Startup. If I had it in my hands when I started my first business, when I was looking at that first opportunity, it would have made me more money and made me a more effective leader, entrepreneur. So that's the whole goal of it.
Well, good. Well, we're going to dive into the book and a lot of the topics that relate perfectly to everybody listening. Everybody listening here is certainly is going to have heard a lot of the high level topics you talked about, but the way you break them down, I think, is really interesting. So we're going to get into all those things. Before we get into these tactics, that you're talking about, like, give us some backstory. Tell us who you are. Tell us a little about who you are before you got into business.
Yeah, why you should listen to me, I think, is a very important part that a lot of people leave out, because you can say anything you want to say, but everybody filters information based on the quality of the source. So I don't say this to brag, but I'll tell you kind of where I'm at in my career. And I still have a lot to learn. I'm just a guy, but I started Bolt Storage, and I started a company called Storage Squad when I was in college. It was pick up and delivery storage business. 2011 is when we founded that business, sold it in 2021, January 21, for a modest 7-figure exit, built a self-storage facility from the ground up in 2015, opened it in 2017. That became Bolt Storage. We have 63 properties, 50 employees. We manage about 2 million square feet of storage. I co-founded RE Costseg, a construction services firm. It's got about 50 employees as well. I bought somewhere.com for $52 million 1 year ago tomorrow on April 30th. 325 employees, about $30 million of revenue across my portfolio. And I've learned a lot about managing people and making decisions, and business is hard. So here we are.
Hey, Jared here. Just a quick word, and then we'll get right back to our interview. So running a business is tough. We know this. You shouldn't have to worry about your website too. With Kinsta's managed hosting for WordPress, you get lightning fast load times, enterprise-grade security, and 24/7 expert support from real human beings. Switch to Kinsta to see site speeds improve by up to 200% with effortless free migrations and a powerful, easy-to-use dashboard. So join over 120,000 businesses who trust Kinsta. Get your first month free at kinsta.com. That's KINSTA.com. Kinsta, simply better hosting. All right, and now back to our interview. What about that first business that you started in college made it so successful? I mean, I think I actually started my first business in college, and I feel like it was, I sold it actually after 11 years. So kind of a similar timeline. It wasn't something, though, that took off overnight. It was really a long build. And I'm curious what made that company end up being successful and launched you into the next company you started, it sounds like a couple years later.
Well, I think this is the lesson, and successful is one way to put it, but it was a brutally stressful business that did 2.2 million of revenue and 350 to 400K of profit at its peak. It had a ton of moving parts, and that first business wasn't necessarily about getting rich or having a lot of success. It was giving me the tools as an entrepreneur to operate. It was teaching me how to hire, to manage, to delegate, to make decisions, all those things that are, very important when it comes to executing and carving out a piece of the pie. So that first business got me started and got me comfortable, and it forged me through a ton of stress because it's a brutally hard business. We were picking up and dropping stuff off. So I was very excited to focus more on self-storage and real estate and some of these other better businesses later. But look, it's a story of every entrepreneur. It's momentum, right? You start that first business, it's about building a little bit of cash, building some skill, building a network, getting confident in your decision making, and then evolving and growing over time. So I think so many people listening to this will be like, wow, or listening to your other guests and say, wow, that person's got an amazing business. They're making millions of dollars a year. I think you really got to back up and you got to start really small, man. I spent 5 years on the ground lugging boxes up staircases. Nobody realizes that. Like, you look at me 15 years later and things are a little bit different. But yeah, that first business gave me the skills.
When did you feel comfortable starting the second business? I think a lot of people will give information or give advice. It's like, hey, stay focused on one thing.
Yeah.
But then you also see people who leverage well and who have many irons in the fire. And so that can be conflicting at times, especially for someone who's sitting on the fence going, how do I know when to spread a little bit of my energy and when to focus my energy?
And look, I'm not going to help anybody get clarity there because there's a ton of nuance. The wealthiest people I know, if I ranked the top 10 wealthiest people I know, 7 of them focused on one thing.
Okay.
I'll just say that. I just so happen to realize that, hey, my business can't take me to 50 million of revenue. It can't take me to serious wealth. There's only so many colleges we can go to. So I had no choice but to diversify and expand. And I'm very thankful that I took my eye off the ball and went and built that first self-storage facility in 2015. So it's nuanced. I think for most people, focusing on one thing's probably the best bet, but I'm very thankful that I got distracted.
Yeah. I love the stat you have. That's really cool. I should survey the top 10 of that in my life and see what the answer comes back as. Well, hey, we're going to get into kind of the topics of your book, and I'll give you a chance to really tell people exactly what it is. But I know that a central theme you have in the book is about simple and boring businesses, and this concept of how I think you said it's like a fast track to wealth. Can you unpack what you mean by that? And we can use that to set the stage for today's conversation.
Yeah, there's no fast track to wealth, but I think that this is the highest percent chance to get wealthy. I think more entrepreneurs need to consider themselves gamblers sitting at a table with chips in front of them, and those chips are their time. How can I invest this time with the highest odds of success? And really, this book is a call out on venture capital, new idea, change the world, technology businesses, because that dominates entrepreneurial media. If you get on X, you get on Instagram, you listen to podcasts, YouTube, it's all about new ideas. It's all about changing the world. Silicon Valley, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, whatever. We worship our business titans. And these people are spectacular, but it's not approachable for the average person.
Right.
Now, that's how media is portrayed, or entrepreneurship is portrayed in the media, but entrepreneurship in your town, entrepreneurship in the real world around me, where I am, within 20 miles of where I am, who are the wealthiest people and what do they do? And I'm talking wealthy. I'm talking about the people with giant beach houses in the Outer Banks or on 30A, private airplanes sitting at the Athens airport. Those people, almost all of them, started regular old-fashioned businesses. One of them started a fire suppression sprinkler install and maintenance company. One of them installs underground utilities for new neighborhoods and developments and government, municipalities, HVAC, plumbing, tree removal, consulting companies, all these businesses that have been done before. There's companies out there that you can study and carve out a piece of the pie. That's how people get really wealthy. So my book is all about that, how to do it, how to analyze opportunities, and then the skills you need to do it well.
The follow-up question I had, you just teased. So how do you analyze opportunities? How do you get ideas? How do you analyze between the different opportunities that are available, whether they're in your town, whether they're available outside of that? Because there's a lot of things to sort through. And I think that can be a big challenge that stops people in their tracks before they even get off the ground.
So the most visited page on my blog of all time, my website, Sweaty Startup, is a list of 200 plus business ideas. They're sweaty, they're bootstrappable. You're picking up something, you're moving something, you're cleaning something, whatever it might be. And you can download that sweatystartup.com/ideas. You can just look at a ton of business ideas, but a general way, a very approachable way, a tactical way to assess new businesses, whether it's an online company or an in-person business. A friend of mine in Athens called me 6 months ago and said, "Hey, Nick, I want to come over and talk to you about a business idea that I have. I'm like, okay. So we sit on my back deck. It's Sunday afternoon. We're having a beer. Our kids are playing in the backyard. And he goes, I want to start a house painting business. And it turns out he had built a website. He had bought a domain. He had shopped 3 or 4 franchises that he was going to potentially buy. He'd priced out a bunch of equipment. He'd done a market analysis. He'd built cash flow models. He'd spent 3 months on the side working on this house painting concept. And I said, and he goes, Nick, what do you think of this business? And I responded right away and said, it doesn't matter what I think. And he goes, what are you talking about? Of course it matters. Like, you're the sweaty startup guy. You wrote the book on these kinds of businesses. And I say, okay, well, let's figure it out. And this is a example that I want everybody to kind of learn from. And it's called the 10-minute drill. I typed in house painting near me in Google Maps. Yep. A bunch of companies showed up in Athens. I picked the one closest to me and I hit call, put it on speaker. Him and I are sitting across from each other. Person answers on the second call, second ring. They say, yes, I'm available tomorrow. Can I come out to your house and give you a quote? I have a crew available Wednesday. I've painted Athens Church. I did some work for UGA. I got a big rig. This is great. I'd love to paint your house. I say, okay, I'll talk to my wife, and I hang up. I call the second one. Again, they answer on the second ring. This time this guy looks at my house on Google Maps, gives me an estimate, talks about how good he is, all the work he's done. He says he can have a crew there tomorrow to do the work. Call the third person. This is Sunday afternoon. This is not even during business hours. Call the third person. He is very eager to do the work, says he'll match any price in town, and then he also has a crew available that week to do the work. I hung up the last call, and I looked at my buddy, and I said, what do you think about the business idea now?
Not a good idea.
It's all about assessing supply and demand in your town. And the thing about online businesses is that you can look at your niche and you can search your competitors in your niche. But the thing about your town is that there's a geographic moat.
Right.
Because some towns are really good for house painting. Some towns are not. It all depends on how strong the competition is. You're analyzing your competition. How hungry for work are they? How good are their Google reviews? How professional are they on the phone? All these things that I run through in the book on how to assess an idea. But that's a very tactical way. Just, hey, look at how hungry the businesses are that are out there doing what you want to be doing right now.
Yeah, it's funny. You can spend so much time, to your point, going through the nuts and bolts and organizing and optimizing the cash flow model and making sure that you have an endless supply of marketing resources. And yet, if it's a saturated market or some of these other things, it doesn't really matter.
Go out there and get the money is the second part of it. I mean, he did 40, 50 hours of work when he could have just went and hung some flyers in a neighborhood and tried to paint somebody's house.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the method of like, let's analyze, aim, think, analyze, aim, and then shoot. Man, I'm shooting from the hip. I'm flying around trying to make a little bit of money. Go make $500 on a weekend and see what you think of it.
Talk about that a little bit more if you could. Any tips you have? Because I think I know for a fact, because I get emails from a lot of people listening, do suffer from paralysis by analysis.
Yep.
And it's certainly there's no shortage of tools available to us, whether online, whether physical, like tools available to us to analyze and give us reasons not to do something and reasons to do something. There's a lot of paralysis by analysis. You just dropped a couple good ones for the record, but anything else to help people to jog their memory, to get their brains going, to not sit on the sidelines?
I think when I started that first business in college, I got a message from somebody on Craigslist that said, hey, Nick, can I store my stuff in your apartment that you have listed for rent? Most people, 99% of people, would have just ignored that email and let that opportunity roll down the hall. I got excited about the prospect of making a few $100. I got off the couch. I got in my car. I went and picked up the stuff. Then I went around campus, hung up some flyers. And the next thing I knew, 2 weeks later, I had $3,000 sitting on the bed and a house full of stuff. Okay. I got excited about the prospect of trading my time for money and going out and hustling and making a little bit of cash. I think there's two types of people. Like, there's the young puppy that has a ton of drive. And when the ball rolls down the hallway, it's every ounce of their being to want to get up and chase the ball. They're excited. They have the energy. And then there's the old dog that's laying on the couch. That's soft. Maybe they have a really easy life. Maybe they don't have to do any of this work. They just watch the ball roll right by. So you got to be the young dog, man. You got to have a little bit of energy, and you got to get excited about the things that are not sexy, that are not massive on the internet and a big new trend. And it's not the AI model or the e-com thing here, or, something everybody's into. I got excited about stuff that other people found boring. And I'm very thankful I did.
Yeah, you mentioned the AI term. I mean, that's certainly the big opportunity of the year, right? That's 2025's pursuit. If you had, let's just say $10,000, or pick whatever number you want. I'm just coming up with some number. But if you had like $10,000 today, what businesses would you be looking into? What businesses would you consider launching?
I would launch an AI, blockchain, you know, NFT, machine learning, self-driving company.
Okay.
No, it's ridiculous. Like every single person goes the same direction, and I
You just
frankly
dropped
don't
like
know.
every year from the last 3 years of the big buzzwords.
Yeah, all these companies, I have no idea how any of them are going to make any money. I really don't. So go do that stuff if you want to tell your friends that you're working on something really cool. But if you want to go make a little bit of cash, figure out one of those items on my list and figure out where you can go trade your time for 25, 30, 50 bucks an hour and start to work into that and go make 250 bucks on a 10-hour day on Saturday and then raise your prices a little bit. And, 10 years later, you just might have a business you can sell.
For people who are looking to trade their time for money on a Saturday and are thinking more along the lines of using some of their entrepreneurial skills they've developed in an online fashion, because a lot of people listening to this are online entrepreneurs. They're digital entrepreneurs. You're involved in the digital world, not just the physical business world as well. What are some ideas you can share with people who maybe want to transition and utilize some of those skill sets they've gained online into some of these more boring but opportunities in their local community?
Yeah, I think the online has a lot of opportunities too. I run two fully online businesses, somewhere.com and Ari Koseg. Neither of them have an office. We hire people all over the world, and they're both really great businesses. We also own a self-storage facility with 13,000 units and 2 million square feet, where we're actually renting garage doors and sweeping units and keeping them very clean. So if I could tell you a certain path that led me here, I would say it's just coincidence and me always having my ears open for opportunity. I was always thinking about, hey, what's a good business? And I think a mindset that I discuss in my book is just think like an entrepreneur all the time. When you're walking around your town or when you're hanging out on the internet, think about every business you interact with and think about how they make money. When you walk in a restaurant, add up the tables, add up the average bill size, add up the seating, divide that by the amount of people working, and think about the hourly rate of the people and what's the rent on the unit and or the property. I think about every single business like that. I can't help myself. Every business I see in my real world, a garbage truck rolls by and I'm thinking about how profitable that route is for the company that owns that garbage, truck. I'm doing the math per man hour of the tree removal company that charged me $4,000, in 4 hours work to remove a couple of trees from my house. And it doesn't take long to spot the opportunities. You're basically figuring out where there's a lot of revenue per man hour because then you have margin.
Let's talk about how you grew a team out, because obviously with the amount of scope you're involved in now, you're not doing it by yourself. You mentioned all the different team members you have. When did you first start hiring someone? Was it your first business? Was it your second business? And maybe, walk us through how you learned to leverage other people to grow out your team.
Yeah, I think my general framework is, well, I had a seasonal company where all my students moved out at the same time. I had no choice but to hire truck drivers and somebody to answer the phone. So I just got thrown to the dogs and I had to learn on the fly. And it was kind of a blessing because I had no choice. There was the busy season in Illinois was the same time as the busy season in New York. And I couldn't be at both places at once. So I had no choice but to delegate. But I tell entrepreneurs all the time, if you as a business owner are not spending half your time or 30% of your time selling and making decisions and growing your company, then you need to make a hire so that you can then spend 20, 30, 40% of your time selling new business, doing marketing, doing the stuff that's important, but not urgent. Most of these business owners are in the trenches trading their time for money. Before you know it, they're treading water, they're underwater. They don't have time to sell. They don't answer the phone. They don't have time to grow. That's when it's time to make a hire. My first hire that I always recommend is an international employee for $1,000, $1,500 a month. It's a lot more approachable than hiring somebody in the United States to execute your service or, be a manager of people. Hire somebody to take the admin off your plate, the billing, the scheduling, the customer service, so that you can then go back to doing more selling as an entrepreneur.
A lot of people have a hard time handing off the process because they will get to the point where they're so overwhelmed, hire someone and just say, kind of, here, solve these problems, fix this area of my business. And then that person doesn't do it quite the way that they want them to. They weren't set up for success. There aren't systems in place, etc.
Yeah.
That blows up. That doesn't go well. And the person then says, I'm never hiring anybody ever again. It doesn't work. And you reverse
I
that
know
trend.
so many. And look, I've been that business owner, man. I was in a bar. I don't know if anybody knows Ithaca, New York, but I was in a bar called Loco's Bar and Grill in 2013 with my business partner. And we were sitting at the bar. We were drinking Coronas, or actually we were probably drinking the cheapest beer on tap, maybe some PBR. And we were just complaining, man. My employees don't show up on time. They don't make good decisions. They don't listen. Look at all this money they're costing us. I can't believe this one wrecked this truck. I can't believe this one, disorganized an entire row of our warehouse. We were just complaining about our people. And eventually my business owner looked at me and he goes, Nick, like, how does Lowe's do it? How does Walmart do it? In this same town, they have 300 plus employees. How do they do it? Like, it's got to be us. It's got to be us. And it's got to be the decisions that we're making and how we're setting them up for success. And so it was kind of a 20-minute awakening where we started shaking each other, being like, okay, it's our fault.
Mm-hmm.
It's our fault. If our employees are making a bunch of mistakes, it's because we are not doing a good job setting them up to do well at whatever they're supposed to be doing. So we took extreme ownership, Jocko Willink style of our hiring. And anytime one of our employees made a mistake, we realized that it was on us. And it was our mistake and it was our fault. So yeah, that mindset shift was very humbling and difficult and took introspection to kind of wrap our minds around.
You've hired a lot of people. Tips you've learned along the way to hiring good people, whether it's in the interview, whether it's how you evaluate, what the things you look for, tips for that.
Yeah, if you're going to hire internationally, I recommend doing a typing speed test for every international hire that you hire. We get 30,000 applicants a month at somewhere.com. We do this for a living, and 80-90% of them can't type over 30 words per minute.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Which makes them totally incapable of working a remote job for a U.S. business owner. So do a typing speed test and make sure the person you hire can type at least 50, 60 words per minute. That's just the most tactical piece of advice I have if you're going to hire an assistant.
Yeah.
If you want to email me and get a discount at somewhere.com, it's nick@sweatystartup.com. The last plug I'll do. But go find these people, bring them in, start telling them what to do. But also in your town, one of the best hires I ever made, I was in a Walmart parking lot in Ithaca, New York. I think this is like 2014. And my girlfriend at the time, now wife, was inside getting a couple things. I was on my computer. It was during busy season, and I was answering customer service emails. It was like 8 p.m. It was snowy, rainy, wet in Ithaca. And I see out of the corner of my eye, there's somebody run across the screen or the parking lot. I look up, and they have a Walmart vest on. I'm like, hold on a second. I have never seen a Walmart employee even walk fast.
Fast.
Now we have one running, and I see him. He's actually running around picking up carts that are in the parking lot. He's getting a bunch of carts. A couple minutes later, he's pushing back to the entrance of the store, a long line of like 40 carts, and a Walmart sack is like tumbleweeding across the parking lot, and he like scoops down and picks it up and puts it in his back pocket. And I'm like, okay, something crazy is happening here. I'm either hallucinating or this person owns this Walmart or something's going on. So I shut my laptop. I got a business card in my back pocket. I book it to make sure that our paths cross, and I walk up to him inside the store. I say, hey, like, what's the rush? What do you got going on? And he goes, oh, my manager called in sick today. The cart guy is not here. He's somewhere in the back on break, but the varsity basketball game is about to get out. And when that varsity basketball game gets out about 8:45, we're going to get 40, 50 customers here. There's not carts. Like, there's no carts up front. It's going to be bad. There's going to be people who need carts. So I had to take care of it. I'm supposed to be back in, produce. I pull out my card and I say, hey, I knew in my head, this is 2013, 14. I knew he was making $12 an hour. I hand him the card and I was like, hey, if you have any friends who are like you, I would love to potentially hire them. I run a moving and storage company in town. We pay $20 an hour plus tips. It's a really fast-paced environment. It's fun. Have any of your friends send me an email. My email's right on that card. He emailed me at like midnight when he got off work. We spoke the next morning. I hired him, and 2 weeks later, he was one of the best employees on my crew. A year after that, he was running the Ithaca branch of my business, traveling to Boston during the busy season there, traveling to DC, traveling to Philadelphia. He worked with me for 4 years. So the lesson is to always be hunting for talent. One of the best hires we ever made at my real estate private equity company was a teacher. It turns out that if you can manage 35-year-olds, you can definitely manage 35-year-olds.
I see what you did there. 30 people who are 5 years old. Yeah, well, my wife's in the education business, and I'll tell you that is a next level of management. You're right.
Yeah, it's she's super organized. She can write well, solve problems, communicate great. So she runs investor relations and new property, acquisition, organization. She organizes and orchestrates the entire takeover of a new property with 300, 400 tenants, and
wow,
she crushes it.
I mean, in growing a team, when do you start to see that snowball effect? And I think that's another question people will often have. Once they start hiring, they get a successful hire in the door, right? They start to see the benefits of, okay, this makes sense. I can see now how I can replicate my time by hiring someone. But when do you advise, and when do you see that snowball effect start to happen where you want to start adding even more team members? And again, just looking for any of those stories you've had along the way where you either made a significant number of hires and it was a good decision, or maybe you overhired and you learned some lessons along that path.
Yeah, this is where hiring internationally is just a total game changer, because you might hire somebody in the United States and they're going to be 50, 60 grand a year plus unemployment insurance plus benefits. They're going to be all in $75,000 a year. That's $6,000 a month. Where I can hire an admin entry level employee for $1,000 a month, literally 70% less money. So it's just way less stressful. I get to build my skills of delegation. I get to grow my business with less stress. A secret that nobody wants to tell you about entrepreneurship is that it gets way easier as you make more money. If you have a profitable business and you're making money every single month, the entire exercise of running and growing a company gets easier. And nobody ever told me that. Hiring people is more stressful when you're broke. You can't afford to do marketing when you're broke. So I would say as soon as several of my companies started really making money is when hiring got less risky. It got more fun. We were able to do it faster. But yeah, I have 325 employees across my portfolio, and I have 22 Americans across 9 companies. So that's a way less stressful way to grow a company.
So while we've been talking, I have pulled up here in my community some different businesses that are for sale. And so I want to ask you, we've talked about how to pick a niche, how to start something. We've talked about how to hire, how to expand, how to grow, how to validate an idea, how to test an idea. How do you pick whether to buy a business or whether to start the business?
I think I'll never start another business. I'll only buy. So there's that. But I also think that 95% of people are not even skilled and competent enough to start a company, let alone buy one. Business is freaking hard. Like, dealing with people is hard. Making decisions all day, every day is hard. Every time the phone rings, it's a problem if you own the company. So, I think 95% of people shouldn't even consider entrepreneurship. They should find a job they like, and they should do what they want to do in their free time, and you can build wealth that way. But the 5% of people who do want to become entrepreneurs, I think you start the first one, build the skills, flex those uncomfortable muscles of learning the things you need to learn. And then as you get more experienced, as you get more confident, as you get more well capitalized, go buy a business. But look, if you're special and you're good at this and you have charisma and you can lead and you can sell and you can make decisions, I know a lot of people who have bought that first business and done very, very well. So it's so much nuance to this, but I'll only buy companies from now on.
Yeah, it does go back to what you said. Like, if you can learn the tough lessons of running a business through buying it, okay. But in your case, I know in my case, like, starting that first business is where you learned all those lessons, and there was a little bit less pressure because you hadn't bought the business, you're starting it. So you
don't have debt. You don't have, like, things can go in an operating company, things can go south insanely quick. Like you can buy an HVAC business that's doing 200-300 grand a month, and then all of a sudden one of your foremen go to a competitor, your project manager goes to a competitor, and they pull and they recruit away your 4 best techs. And what do you have left? Like, what do you got? Your whole business is decimated with one move. If you have, $700,000 of personally guaranteed SBA loan on that business, it's going to be a tough road down as you go bankrupt. And
That's a bad day.
try not to let it pull down your identity and ruin you as a man on the way down.
What are you looking for in a business that you're going to buy? If you're not going to start it, you're going to buy it. And what are you looking for, both in terms of opportunity? Hey, this looks attractive out of all the other businesses I've looked at. This is what's attractive. But also, what are you looking about in terms of red flags or things that are risk factors that don't make sense?
I think that everybody who wants to buy a company has this idea, especially in my space of boring businesses. They have this idea that these boomers don't know how to run companies just because they don't have digital marketing and
That's
a bunch
a good
of
point.
online reviews.
Yep.
So they think, I can just go in and, hey, we're going to look, they have a fax machine on the desk. We're going to do Google Docs and email. And look, they have no digital marketing. We're going to turn on digital marketing. That is a viable strategy. And people have grown massive companies that way. But these people who have built successful companies doing hundreds of thousands of dollars a month of revenue are very good at certain things. They're very good at retaining employees. They're very good at getting contractors to trust them with repeat work. They're very good at running these companies. So these boomers get underestimated, but damn, some of them are really good operators, even if they don't know how to use email. So be very careful. That's a red flag. Just thinking that you're going to come in and layer on digital marketing and build a new website. But yeah, I mean, you got to have a plan and a competitive advantage and a niche and a way to, grow and scale. And for every business, it's different.
Talk about, you mentioned you acquired somewhere.com just 1 year ago. I think almost to the day you said, what was the impetus behind that? What was the acquisition like? That's a very big acquisition.
Yeah, I raised $20 million to buy controlling interest in somewhere.com. And it's an international recruiting company because I have seen the power of what it can do to my company. And I think it's only going to accelerate as technology increases and people get used to working remotely. So it's a bet that I took, and it's going well. Revenue's up. In March, it was up 40% year over year. So
wow,
yeah, we're rocking and rolling.
What are you doing to grow that? That's not exactly your mom and pop HVAC shop, but at the same time, what are you doing that's working there? What lessons can be taken out of that?
It's blocking and tackling. It's just having a really good customer experience, sourcing the best talent. Recruiting is really hard. So if you can do it well and you can have really good systems for vetting and bringing in the best people, your customers are going to repeat. So that's our plan.
Yep. I want to spend a couple minutes talking about personal brand. We talk about that a lot here. A lot of people listening are always wrestling with how much do I invest in a personal brand versus just work on my business, work on my businesses. You've built a personal brand. I follow you on X. I know you're also on LinkedIn. I believe you're on YouTube. How important has that been? How glad are you've done that? And then maybe we can talk about a couple of the tactics or the tips you have for people who are wanting to do that.
Yeah. So the personal brand has accelerated my career by 40 years. Over just 5 years ago is when I got serious about social media. It gave me access to business partners, gave me access to audience, which became customers. It gave me access to investors to grow my real estate company. Real estate is the most capital intensive business in the world. And it gave me access to a lot of people with, experience and interest in investing in real estate deals. So it has changed my life altogether. As far as tips and tactics, the way that I grew my audience was to be radically open about the things that are working for me and show people that I was actually doing something.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants to grow an audience, but nobody wants to actually do something interesting to grow the audience. If you look at the most followed people on social media in the entire world, they're all spectacular at something. They're in the top 0.0001% of something, whether it's basketball, music, politics, whatever, right? They are the people who have shown that they are worth listening to. So if you want to get people to follow you, unfortunately, you have to accomplish something first. So I was building and growing a self-storage business quickly, and it was working. And I was radically open about how I was doing that. I was screenshotting my profit and loss statements and putting them on and talking about how we found the deal, how we bought the deal, what we did as soon as we bought it, what it was worth then, what it's worth now. So not very many people are as willing to talk about all their tips and trade secrets and what's working.
But you have said to hear you say it's fast tracked 40 years of your career. That's insane. That's really powerful. I mean,
there's a concept in the book just called add value first. I think people network all wrong. They walk around. Like if you go to a college networking event, you'll see a bunch of college kids networking by saying, help me, help me, help me, help me, help me. Everybody help me, help me. Like, what can you do for me? How can everybody help me? They're looking at networking in a very selfish way. Unfortunately, networking doesn't work that way. Everybody's selfish and they want to know you if you have something to bring to the table. Mm-hmm. So if you can add value and you can prove that you're worth knowing and you can get a skill, mine just happened to be, self-storage and real estate, private equity. Then people wanted to know me because I could help them with self-storage or real estate private equity, right? So understand that the entire world is selfish. Everybody's selfish. Like literally my wife married me because she thought I could make her life better than another man could. My business partner partnered with me because I'm going to add more value to the companies that we own together than cash I'm going to take out. So like if you understand that about networking as well, mm-hmm. and the internet, that mindset shift will change a lot for you.
Okay, that's good. Let's talk about the book and what you tackle in the book. Like we know it's about some of the concepts we've been discussing today, but What would people learn in the book?
Yeah, you'll learn how to look at opportunity, how to choose your competition wisely, how to pick the path of least resistance to entrepreneurship. That's a massive concept. Most people look at entrepreneurship as I'm a person, I'm in a valley, I'm looking up at mountains. That mountain is treacherous. It's icy at the top. The odds are low that I'll get there, but I'm going to climb that mountain. That is not the way to look at entrepreneurship. You're on top of a mountain and you open a fire hose and water starts to run down the mountain. That water is going to find the path of least resistance. Mm-hmm. It's going to do what's easiest. What is the highest odds of success? Business is not an Olympic gymnastics routine where you get paid more for a degree of difficulty, right? You can get paid very well for doing simple things. So find those simple things. Find one where the competition's weak and you can actually go and compete and carve out a piece of the pie. And then we move on to the mindset shift of what you need to make good decisions, how to hire, how to delegate, the importance of sales, because life is sales as you're an entrepreneur. And then we go on to talk about, operations and marketing. And basically this is the guide of what I wish I knew when I was, starting that first company.
I love that analogy about the water, and water always finds the path. It's so funny to watch that happen in your driveway, or I'm just getting visions of that because it's so true. Like it always finds the simplest way.
In my book, there's a part that the editor wanted me to take out where I say, like, okay, $30,000 a month. Maybe that was my number. You do an exercise where you pick your number. Like, what do you need to live the life you want to live? Mm-hmm. And most people do this exercise and they realize it's not nearly as much money as they thought. They thought they needed to build a multi-million-dollar company. Some people can live an amazing life on 10 grand a month, 20 grand, 30 grand a month. Mine was 30 grand. That's what I needed to like put my family in nice cars, play golf at a country club, travel and not look at the right side of a menu, all the things that just are not stressful about life. What's the least, the path of least resistance to get there? And I look at, you get to pick your competition in business. It's the only thing where you get to pick who you're going to play against. Do you want to play against LeBron James or the Stanford graduate who has $20 million of venture capital and is a certified genius? Do you want to compete against LeBron in a game of basketball? Or do you want to compete against a fifth grade girl who is making several $1 million a year but has a fax machine sitting on their desk? Which one of those two games do you want to play?
Path of least resistance. I will include a link to your book in the show notes. It'll have been out, I think, for about a week at this point. So fresh off the press. Nick, thanks for joining us. Congrats on your success. Thanks for sharing so many great details. I think it's going to give everyone a lot to think about, and hopefully get a few people off the edge and get started with business.
Yeah. One last parting thought, I think, is that I know a lot of phenomenally successful people who are below average individuals, but they make amazing money simply because they're not insecure. Below average individuals who make amazing money simply because they're not insecure. Mm-hmm. So if you can build up the courage and realize that the worst case scenario is not that bad, you'll have more propensity to get up and make something happen.
Mm-hmm.
But Jared, I really appreciate you having me on, man. I love your message, and thanks again for letting me come here and share what I know.
I appreciate it. It's been great to have you. Thanks so much for joining us. Good luck on the book. We'll catch up with you again sometime soon. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, Spencer here, founder of Niche Pursuits. Are you adding a new internal link pointing to each article you publish? You should be. Ever find it time-consuming and a bit overwhelming? Remembering what content you published and deciding which anchor text to use can be a real headache. What if there was a better way? Well, that's exactly why I created Link Whisper. Simply click Add Inbound Internal Links, and Link Whisper will scan your site in seconds and suggest the most relevant links with appropriate anchor text for your new article. Now simply check the box next to the internal links you want to add, and Link Whisper will add these links for you. No need to go into each article, edit, and add the link. It's already done. No more manual internal link building or guesswork. Just efficient, accurate linking that saves you time and improves your SEO. Transform your content strategy with Link Whisper. Start linking smarter, not harder. Use the coupon code PODCAST for $15 off. Head over to linkwhisper.com and use coupon code PODCAST to get $15 off.